Well, what's going on? What's up, everybody? How you doing, Mary Rose?
I'm doing good. How are you, Javi?
Good, good. How's your day been so far?
Not gonna lie, it's been tiring. But it's midterm season, so I'm like a
Ooh,
little tired. But I'm glad I'm here.
yeah, we're both definitely going through that. But let's get it started. What's up, everybody? Thank you for joining us today. We have a cool little presentation set up for y'all. Really quick, it's called so what it is Families in Action Voting Talk. The main purpose is really just to you know, talk about the importance of voting. Especially during these local OUs, these school board elections. Of course, we have these federal elections for the presidential stuff, but we cannot forget how important these local elections are. All right. So before we get started, before we introduce ourselves, for my folks that have already joined, hopefully we have a couple. We really just want to hear from you guys. So we're gonna start off with just the name, the school you affiliate yourself with, and then also it's about to be Halloween. Halloween is what, next week, Mary Rose, right? So let's do
Pretty
this.
sure, yeah.
Yeah, let's do your favorite Halloween treat. It could be your favorite Halloween treat right now, or in the past when you were a kid. Let's hear it from y'all. Favorite Halloween treat, your name, and then what school you affiliate yourself with. And what's up, Ebony? I see you, girl. What is your favorite treat, Mary Rose?
I'd say my favorite treat might be any gummies besides Swedish fish.
Swedish fish.
Yeah.
I have to agree with that. I don't know. I love chocolate. Chocolate's always something that like I always try to get. When I would go trick or treating growing up, and even now when my little nephew comes back with candy, well, not this year for sure, but like, in the past when my little nephew would come back with candy, I would always do a chocolate or the gummy bears as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's hear from folks who have joined us. Again, let's just see, your name, um, your favorite Halloween candy, and then also the school you affiliate yourself with. All right, let's hear it.
I see a comment from Ayana. Hi,
Ooh,
Ayana. She's from a community, and her chocolate is her Halloween treat.
I mean, chocolate's the way to go. What's up, Rocio? How you doing? At what age did you stop trick or treating, my girls?
I didn't stop last year.
I don't.
But definitely, I don't know. I don't know. This year might be. Well, I was hoping this could have been my last year, but I don't know. Maybe next year. I could pass.
We got Ebony from Cox, and she said lemon heads or any chocolate. Lemon heads are slept on. I ain't gonna lie, lemon heads are pretty good.
Yes.
Mm. We got Carlos saying chocolate gang in the house. What's good? Yep, yep. That's what I'm talking about. I think for me, like I see, the thing is, I've always been a big guy. You know what I'm talking about? So I think I got to the age early on. I was like maybe 10 or 11. I was like, yeah, this ain't for me no more. I'm just like buying my own candy.
Really?
You know what I mean?
Oh my god.
But then I have my nephew too, so I just went on him and I would take his candy. That's the pyramid thing. See, when you get older, you just take your little nephew's candy.
I don't have anyone younger than me though, so I gotta go.
You gotta keep on going then. Um, we got anybody else? Anybody else for before we move on? Thank you though for the people who have my folks who have commented already. Thank you. Let me see if we get anybody else before we move on. Your name, your school you affiliate yourself with, and favorite candy for Halloween.
I don't know if we said hi to Rocio yet, but hi Rocio, I see you.
What's up, Rocio? All right, cool. How about this? Let's move on. Let's introduce ourselves. So my name is Javier Barraza, and before I introduce myself, I want to give my amazing co-host the opportunity to introduce herself first. Mary Rose, go for it.
Hello everyone, my name is Mary Rose Martinez. I am an alumni from Oakland Unity High School and a current SF State student and now a youth organizer with FIA. Um, and so I'd say my story would be I am a first gen and an older sister. My sister and I do go to different schools, so you can kind of see the difference there. And I see it. And the thing is, I feel like it shouldn't be a difference in terms of like our education. And so I think that's one of the biggest reasons why I really fight for this, because you know, we can tell what works for us, and that's a choice that I have the privilege to have. And I think, especially with the current situation that we have, I think it's important that, you know, we fight for that and make sure that our choice is fought for and heard.
Definitely, definitely. Awesome. Thank you, Mary Rose. Everybody gives Mary Rose a shout out. She's awesome. So for those of you who don't know me, my name is Javier Barraza. I am also an Oakland Union High School alumni. Um, and so I got in this, I got involved in this work a few years back, you know, being a youth organizer. Um, and this is actually my first year here with Families in Action. But you know, the main thing that keeps me involved in this work is just being able to empower the youth who I worked with in the past. Mary Rose being one of them. Um, but yeah, I love the work. I love working with students, and I think you know one of the main reasons I initially got involved was because you know I was able to witness firsthand the lack of resources that you know are in my community, you know, of Oakland, and you know those lack of resources have affected you know us Oakland residents and Oakland citizens from reaching our full potential. And I think it's the same when we think about you know the lack of resources that are within our schools. You know, those lack of resources are really hurting our youth, and it's not allowing them to reach their full potential, not allowing them to you know go to the next you know the next step of their education, which is college, and then graduate college, or even then again graduate high school as well. So you know this
Mhm.
work is very important to me, very important to Mary Rose, and you know this is the reason why we're you know involved in this work. We really want to make sure that all Oakland families and students are being accounted for, and are being well represented, and are you know reaching their full potential. All right, so that's who we are. So let's get it started, huh? Really quick before we go right into our presentation, we have this voting power pledge. So what you can do is you can use your phone to scan that barcode, and it will take you to that link where you can like, or it will take you to the website or to the voting pledge, and you could just commit to vote. And like I said, that's one of the main reasons why we're here today. We want to make sure that everybody who can vote is exercising their right to vote. And even if you can't, you know, if you're a student or, for example, if you're undocumented, you're still aware of this information and can share it to others. And, you know, that way you still can exercise your power, you know, by letting others know about this stuff. All right, so we're going to take a second for that really quick. All right, I love this slide, by the way. It's really neat, huh, Meryl?
Yeah, I think it's cool. I think it's with all of the digital things that's happening today, I think it's convenient. I'm gonna say
I
that.
know, I've been forgetting we're in a whole pandemic right now. All right, cool. So hopefully everybody had a chance to get that you know that voting pledge done. Let's move on, huh?
All right, so thank you for those who did take the pledge. So we can get right into this. You know, many of you guys will be able to vote in 2020. And here's why you guys are important in terms of that. And it comes down to this: voting is the most basic right for an individual in our democracy. It is important that we have the power and the advocacy and to elect people to represent us in our community, regardless. You know, like we tend to see a lot of our Black and Browns community not going out to vote. And what we need to understand is that our local government does have a huge impact on our lives. For example, they have the power to make ordinance for the town and the city. They have the funds. They fund the police and the fire department and our public schools. We can go next. So, what is a parent and family choice? For many, it's the path to better education. Choice is the ability to choose the type of school your child attends, whether it be public or private. In Oakland, that choice is being under attack. Um, For those who have gone to an OUSD board meeting, you guys have seen some like anti-charter folk that are trying to take that choice away from our families. And it's important that we elect those who can represent us and have that power. We have that power with our vote.
Mm-hmm.
But choice doesn't happen without our Black and Brown people having the right to vote. So now we have history time with Javi.
Awesome. So thank you, Mary Rose, for that. And right now we're gonna jump into this, voting rights timeline, right? But before we get into talking about the 14th Amendment, it's very important that we also highlight the 13th Amendment, right, which is what abolished slavery. Um, so even with the 13th Amendment, being abolished, there was still this thing called Black codes, and what that did was it put some harsh limitations on the Black community. Some of these harsh limitations were things as the type of property that Blacks could buy, strict labor contracts, and what would happen is if these strict labor contracts were broken, it could lead to a person being arrested, beaten, or even forced to work. And that's when it was very difficult. So after many of the North argued that these codes violated the fundamental principles of free labor ideology, the Civil Rights Act was passed. All right. So now, before we get into the 15th Amendment, right, amendment in 1870, there was still this one thing that was called the Reconstruction Act of 1867. So what that did was it required Southern states to ratify the 14th Amendment, which granted equal protection to former slaves. Now that that sounds good, right? But before I get to that, this led into finally the 15th Amendment, right, which was, voting rights cannot be denied or abridged on account of race, color, or previous servitude. So this is what sounds great. It sounds like a good deal. But the issue was that, even with this 15th Amendment, even though it gave rights to the Black community, this led to Southern states being able to determine the special qualifications for suffrage. Now, some of these qualifications were that, were literacy tests, were poll taxes, and other discriminatory practices. And all of these things were created to disenfranchise the majority of the Black vote in the decades to come. So, like I said, even though it sounded great, a big part of the Black community still didn't have that right to vote because of these qualifications. So now, we jump to 1919 when women got the right to vote, which was awesome. And then we finally get to, a big part of, well, throughout the time, right, we're doing, there's this big part of the civil rights movement, right? So securing voting rights for African Americans became the central focus for the civil rights movement. And during that time, we saw marches led by like the great Martin Luther King Jr. and also other amazing civil rights activists who were in Selma and other parts, advocating for this issue, right? And finally, after years and years, and you can see, we're talking about 1870 up until 1965. That's a huge gap. That's a huge part of history, where these this civil rights movement was going into effect and doing its work. So finally, after everything, President Lyndon Johnson signed into law the Voting Rights Act, which banned literature tests and other methods to disenfranchise Black voters. So that's here in 1965. And now, we still have in 1975, where the Voting Rights Act of 1965 was amended. So what this led to was several court battles on behalf of Latino Americans. So President Gerald Ford amended the act to also end discrimination against so-called language minorities. So now that's where we finally got to see a lot of the Chicano folks and Mexican folks and just people who had the issue with speaking English were also able to vote, and just it allowed others to have that right. So in the result of all this, it just goes to show that voting wasn't a right that was given to us. It was a right that was earned after years and years of battling. And that's why it's so important that we take advantage of it. This was something that our past generations fought for, and we got to make sure that we do our part in voting. All right, so that's that. So now we're gonna keep on talking about the topic of voting, right? So who are people expecting not to vote? And the simple question is Black and brown people, people living in poverty, and young people. We're the ones who kind of, people think that we're not going to vote. And I think it was like that for a reason, and a lot of it has to do with, voter suppression as well. Um, and, in a period where we saw a lot of Black and brown community going out to vote, which was awesome, was, when I feel like when Obama first ran for president, and I think that was a great moment where we saw a lot of people out there. And we got to continue to do the same. We can't, fall behind, and we can't get too comfortable, because there's people out there with agendas that don't have our best interest in mind. All right. So let's go to the next slide. So now we're going to talk about who has voting power here in Oakland when it comes to the school board races. And this is a question for y'all. Actually, I want you to blow this chat up real quick. Who normally votes in Oakland? Let's hear it. Let me see it on the chat. Rose, are you seeing someone on the chat?
We have Kimmy. We have Kimmy saying older people.
Definitely. How about other folks? So who normally votes in Oakland? Or who do you think normally votes in Oakland if you're not, too sure? Ooh, Mia said me. Mia. Look at that. How about other folks? KB, keeping up. Knowledge is definitely power. Thank you for having this platform. Thank you for being here, is what I'll say. I appreciate everybody who's on here. I've seen some of my folks on here too. Shout out to y'all. So we'll give it a little bit more time, a couple more seconds. Let me hear from y'all. Who normally votes in Oakland? Who do you think normally votes in Oakland? David Castillo said higher voting in the hills. Let's change that. Exactly. Older white people who don't live in our communities. Ebony, shout out to you. All right, cool. So how about this? Let's move on. Thank you for everybody who said something. So y'all are right. When it comes down to it, white people and older people tend to vote most frequently, hence voting power and being catered to. And when we say being catered to, right, that just means that being that the Black and brown community are seen as we don't go out to vote. This means that we have candidates who are running who don't come to our communities, who don't come to our candidate forums or whatever event we might have. They don't come to hear from us. We have a lot of issues out here in the flats where a lot of us are from, right? We have a lot of issues down here, and they're not being heard. We're not being represented. So that's that's what it means when it says being cared to. All right. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide as well. So, who are the targeted voters? And it's older folks and white folks. And again, it's because, we're seen to we're like the Black and brown community are, people think that we're not going to go out to vote. And that's why we need to take that power back. We need to show them that, we matter and that our voice matters. And they better come to our communities, because if they don't, then we're not going to vote for them, right? We're going to vote for the person that comes to us and who generally wants to hear our issues and want to hear, what we're going through within our school community and within our Oakland community as well. So that's why, we need to take that power back. If charter families flooded the voting booth, we could make a difference. And the reason behind that, the reason I say that is because, not a lot of people not a lot of people in general know about these Oakland school board elections, right? And, for example, my parents didn't know about it, my family didn't know about it, and I'm pretty sure it's going to be the same if you ask some of your family as well. So that's why, it's important to let your family know about it. let them know that it's time for them to go out to vote, not just for the presidential elections, but also for these local OUSD elections. We have the potential to be one of the most powerful voting blocks in the city. And the reason I say that is because East Oakland, most of West Oakland, is still majority Black and brown, right? So we need to make sure that we go out to vote and make sure that we're being represented. Anything you want to add to that, Marios, before I move on?
Honestly, I think you hit it all, so you can keep going.
All right, cool. Well, let's take a second. Actually, let's hear. Is there anything the folks want to say? How do y'all feel about it right now? Is this making sense to y'all? Do y'all have any experience that you guys might want to throw up on here? Let's take a moment to hear from y'all. And I'm trying to log into like the Facebook one to see, but I can't, Meryl.
I haven't seen anyone really comment anything, but I do want to shout out some of the people here. KB Keeping Up has been saying a lot of great responses. Kimmy has been saying great responses. And Maya giving out shout outs and stuff. We also have KB saying charter parents are choosers. Remember, they choose their schools. It wasn't just assigned by zip code.
Awesome. Cool. Yeah, and I think that's very important, that choice, when she said choose, or KB said choose their school, we got to make sure that we keep that choice alive, regardless of, where a family or a parent chooses to send their school, as long as that school benefits them and their family, that's really what's most important. And the only way to keep that alive is by keeping that choice alive, right? Maya said we all have the power to vote. Exactly. Shout out to Maya again. I love Maya. Or Mia, actually. I believe it's Mia. I'm pronouncing it wrong. I'm sorry, girl. All right, cool. So let's move on. So we're still on this topic, right? Of who votes in Oakland. And when it comes down to it, like we said, it's older folks and white folks. And what tends to happen is there's this sweet spot, right? But the thing is, the sweet spot tends to not look like you or have your best interest in mind. And again, the reason I say is because these candidates aren't coming to us. They're not seeking us. They're taking their postcards and they're taking their canvassing up in the hills, or they're specifically targeting white households or older white folks who vote, which means that we're being skipped. We're not being taken accounted for. And that's why it's important. Like I said, let's take back our power. All right. Cool. So a little bit about these upcoming OUSD school board elections. We have 4 of the 7 seats are open for grabs right now, right? So if you live in D7, or if you live in D3, D1, or D5, you're gonna see the option to vote for like a candidate that's running for your district school board election or district school board slot. The reason why this is like very important, right? Two out of these 4 candidates, two candidates here have come out in support of charter schools in a lot of different ways. Especially shout out D3, who's definitely one of those candidates who have, right. It's important that we make sure we get somebody out of these new folks who are running and who are going to be elected. We have to elect somebody who's going to keep our values in mind, right? For the most part, we want to make sure that parents and families just make sure families and students keep that choice alive. We want to make sure that all charter schools, all students, both charter schools and public schools, are being accounted for and are being well represented, right? Personally, for me, I want to make sure that every Oakland youth has all the resources they need to be successful. And I think that's where Mary Rose lies, and that's where we all should honestly lie. We all should be in that position where we care for all Oakland students. There shouldn't be any division. It should be, how can we as Oakland people make sure that every student is getting the resources they need. All right. So yeah, again, like I said, this is very important for us to make sure that we get somebody elected who's gonna represent all of us. So when it comes to these local school board elections, they're important because they govern the OUC superintendent. They authorize schools like yours. Why does it matter? There will be people running in large part to combat charter schools and family choice. Now, this is like something where I can personally speak from experience, and I know many of you. And I'm gonna actually give a chance to open this up, right? For my folks that are on here, and if you have been to like an OUSD school board election, how many times have you gone to one and there's just a lot of people in there who's like bashing charter schools the whole time for the most part? And personally, me, I've been going, since I got involved in this work, 3 years back, going to OUC school board meetings, and it's always the same thing, just like people bashing charter schools. But I feel like what's not being taken into account is that these schools are really benefiting a lot of these students. And personally, me, like I went to a charter school and I went to Oakland University High School alumni, like I said before, and it really just benefited me. The schools, the small class size, from the small community, how it felt. The teachers were great, and not just that, but like it's really for me like a family school. I've had a lot of family who went to Oakland University High School, up from my sisters from 2008, from different cousins, classes of 2008, class 2011, 2013, 2016, 2018. So there's a bunch of us Barrazas who've been in there. And that's how a lot of these schools are. And I think that's why it's important to keep those schools open and not just bash them, because there's a reason why families keep on sending their schools there, and it's because that's the best opportunity and choice for them. And also talking to other students about it, students who I've worked with in the past, a lot of them, it's easy for them to get. It's an easy school to get to in the mornings. So a lot of students, for example, don't have parents are working in the mornings. They don't have a way to get there. I've known students who go to that school who live literally across the street. And it just shows, like, if that choice wasn't available, they might have to end up going to some other school, some other district school that might not be close to them. So it would be a lot harder for them to get to that school. It just doesn't make sense, for them to not have that choice to go to a school that works for them. All right. And finally, so who tends to vote against choice? Statistically, white people, older people, and people with access to some of the best schools, both public and private. And I believe it was David Castillo who mentioned this. He said, it's the folks in the hills, right? And it's true. Out here in the flats, East Oakland, we don't have that. We don't have those luxury schools that some folks out there in the hills have. We really struggle to have some of the basic resources. Like, I know at Unity, for example, our facility, I'm not sure for anybody who's been to Oakland Unity, our school was literally based, in a park, behind a church parking lot. But that's the best we could get, and we made the best out of it. And that's what I'm saying. Like, we need to make sure that all schools get the true resources they need, to reach their full potential. And a lot of those resources are lacking among schools out here in East Oakland, both traditional public schools and public charter schools. So before we move on to the next thing, Mary Rose, is there anything you wish to add?
Yeah, I do want to add just like the importance of like our elections for the school board. The school board has a lot of power. They have the power to close their schools. They have the power to they are in charge of renewing or not renewing our schools, and they are in charge of distributing funding and approving facilities for our schools. So it's important that like we really take in mind how much power they have for a lot of our children's lives. So that's what I wanted to add for that last part.
Awesome, thank you, Mary Rose. And I just want to make sure, because I know that I asked that question to my folks who are here listening. Have you personally like experienced as well where you go to an OUSD school board meeting and also feel this way, where a lot of folks are there and they're just bashing our charter schools.
Yeah. I remember one meeting that you actually took our club to, and we were there just kind of observing, and we weren't there for any like particular reason. We were just more there just to kind of observe, and just support the students who were actually going up there for a renewal. And I remember there was literally kids, like students, talking to our board members, and there's adults just like bashing the kids, yelling at them and like kind of distracting them, making them kind of forget what they're talking about. And I think it was outrageous to me. It was like ridiculous seeing like adults um, not realizing they're talking to kids and that they're advocating for the school that they actually um, fight for, and they're like advocating for it, and they appreciate their school and that's why they're there. But I don't think some of those kind of realize that like these affect children's lives, and like even just like that small moment of them bashing their school, it can affect them for a while.
Yeah. And shout out to Ebony, who said, every time I went to a meeting, I encountered a charter basher. And yeah, man, Rose, what you were saying is just totally like spot on. Especially when it gets to like people attacking us, like verbally, attacking the students. Like what kind of what does that say? For our students who are out here advocating, for their education. Like to me, it makes no sense. There shouldn't be that division. We're out here just trying to students are out there, we're out there trying to advocate for us just to have a better, opportunity of education, just like everybody else. And instead of us having that division, we should unite and work together to see how we can, make sure we all get that. We gotta work together, not fight against each other. Um, but awesome. Shout out to Ebony again. Thank you for commenting that. And let's move on.
So thank you, Javi, for all that information that we just took in. So what you guys can do, as a student, you guys can exercise your agency by voting, if you are 18, of course. And if you are a youth that is 16 or older, you guys can actually pre-register. You guys can talk to your families and the communities about the upcoming elections. Just inform others. You guys could force your school to get involved. Educate you guys on the issues. I think I don't think schools realize how important it is to actually like advocate to your students. They're the ones who actually can spread out and have influence to their families as well. Inform others using your social media accounts. It's important in this time of age. Invite candidates to speak to your students at your school. And there is a measure on the ballot that actually lets students or youth at age 16 to start voting. Um, and I think that's something that we can talk about with the students, and just make sure people who are like check on people who are registered and make sure that they vote. As a parent, you guys also have ways to advocate or exercise your agency. Of course, you guys can vote. You guys could also talk to your family members who also are able to vote and community about the upcoming elections. You guys could also plan to go voting together. I know early voting starting soon or have started. I'm unsure. But you guys can also share why it's important on your social media accounts. Um, and invite candidates to come speak with you and your friends. It's a great way to connect with the candidates as well, and ask questions if you guys have. And then again, just talk to other registered voters and making sure that they vote as well. And what can you do if you can't vote? Well, there is ways you guys can still exercise your agency. As someone that can't vote, you guys can also be an advocate for those who get ready to vote, and get others to vote as well. You guys can talk to your family members and community members about the upcoming elections. You guys can share why it's important on your social media. It's a way to kind of connect to those who our voters and who are able to do it as well. Talk to registered voters, of course, and make sure that, like, if you know someone who is a registered voter, make sure that they get their vote in and on time and stuff. And again, just don't be ashamed if you can't vote, because you guys still have power. You guys still have the influence to connect with those who are able to vote, and make sure, like, you could express to them how important it is, at least for them to vote on your behalf. And that's all. I'll pass it to Javi.
Yeah, definitely, and I definitely want to just add, to a little bit to these past three slides, just to again, note the importance of voting. Through this presentation, we talked about just the history of voting, and I think that's something that just is so important for us to know about. That's something that isn't really talked about in schools that much. We don't learn about that. And that's something that I just got to learn not a couple months back. But it's important to know what our past generations had to go through. Like I said, this was something that wasn't given; it was earned. And so even if you can't vote because of even if you might not be old enough, or say you might be undocumented, you still have to exercise your power. You can still do it. Like Mary was saying, go out to others who might be able to vote, and talk to them about it. Talk to them about what you've learned, about what you know about the candidates. And a little quick thing, if you want to learn more about the candidates as well, we had some candidate forums in the past. So we actually had a candidate forum for every district that has a open spot. So for D7, D5, D3, and D1, we have those candidate forums available for you to go check them out. You can check them out with one of your friends, and you can literally hear the positions of these candidates and where they stand, right? And then like I said, you can do that. You can also just check out our FIA Instagram page and our FIA Facebook page, where you guys should be at right now, and just keep look for updates. Just stay informed about this stuff. It's very important. But overall, keep exercising your power if you can vote, and if you can't, still keep your power. That's the most important thing.
Definitely.
Cool. So again, we're gonna do this one more time before we get to our closing statements. Again, it's very important that we exercise our right to vote. So we're doing this voting pledge. We're bringing it up one more time for folks who might have joined it a bit late. But all you do is scan the barcode. You can do it with the phone and your camera, and it'll take you to where you can do the voting pledge. All right. And the reason again is just to hold ourselves accountable to go out to vote, because as we all know now, hopefully it's super important that we do so. It's super important that we take back our power, and it's super important that these officials represent us, and not just those folks up in the hills, and not just the older folks or the white folks. They have to talk to us. We got to force them to talk to us. All right. So we'll give a little bit more second for that, and we're almost about done, Mary Rose.
We made it.
Cool. So hopefully everybody had a chance to take that voting pledge. And the last thing we wanted to say, again, is join our social media page. This is how you can stay involved in the movement, and just keep. We're still having events going on, right? Of course, they're not in-person events because of this whole pandemic, but we have a lot of virtual events that we're doing, where you can get involved and still learn more about the stuff that we're doing. We also have another winter institute that's coming up, where you can get involved and build on your skills, become an advocate for yourself, and overall just become involved in this work, and take a I'll say, how can I say it? Take the opportunity to advocate for your family, and then for your child, and overall for your community. So we have FIA Oakland, our Instagram page, and then we have Oakland Families in Action for our Facebook page. Yeah, so that's all we got for y'all. Before we end it, Mary Rose, you wanna say something before we end it?
I will add, I just want families to kind of take in, if you were to take in something from this, just to remember how important it is to vote local. Um, these people have a lot of power within a lot of our students' lives, and they have the power to really affect whether or not like our families get to choose like what works for them. And it's important that we take that into consideration, especially when we're voting. And I think taking that knowledge from our forums that we've given, all of this information that we've passed on to you guys, to take that into your mind and make choices that actually can affect a lot of the students, in a good way, of course. And yeah, I think that's all I have.
Awesome. And I think before I end it off, um, I know Priscilla was putting some links down. I'm not sure if she already did it, but if you've seen those links are important because it's a link. Oh, there it goes. It's a link for where your polling place is, right? So I'm hoping a lot of y'all did, the mailing ballot. But I know some folks might not prefer that. So if you're still gonna go do if you're gonna go to a polling place, Priscilla just put a link that will show you, where's your polling place at. Please be safe. Wear your mask. Take some gloves. Be as safe as possible about it. Take care of yourselves. And then also, there's going to be a link to how to track your ballot. So for my folks that did do a mail-in ballot, that's how you can track your ballot just to make sure it got in. And if that way you can see if something happened to it. Hopefully nothing happens to it, right? But if something happened to it, you'll be able to know. And if it comes down to it, you can go to the polling place and do it there. All right. But the last thing I'll say, thank you everyone for joining. It really means a lot to me, Mary Rose. This is our first time ever doing a podcast like this. So shout out to y'all for joining us through this process. Make sure you guys vote. That's the last thing. One of the last things I'll say. Vote, vote, vote. It's super important that we have this right now. So we might as well put it to use. All right. So again, one last time, thank you everybody for joining, and we'll close it. Everybody stay safe and enjoy the rest of your day. Peace, everybody.
Thank you.